The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It is Monday, March the 16th, 2026. We're live here at CHD TV. Right, first thing we're going to do this morning is go live with Karl Jablonowski, our senior research scientist at Children's Health Defense, to find the latest on what is going on in the science department. Good morning, Karl.
Good morning, Polly.
Well, tell us, update us on all the fabulous work you're doing with your team.
Well, sure. So a couple of weeks ago, I had the honor of going to the AMSIS conference. That's the it's the Association of Military Surgeons of the United States, where I presented our work where our findings of the Census Bureau data showed that children of U.S. military members had a much higher rate of autism than the civilian population. At that conference, I ran into a bioethicist, a Dr. Robert Klitzman. He's the director of bioethics program at Columbia. And we started talking about the Guinea-Bissau study on the birth Hep B dose. It was the one that was awarded $1.6 million from the CDC with two other matching donations from nonprofits. It was chided by Paul Offitz as Kennedy's own Tuskegee experiment in Rolling Stones. And it was suspended by the Guinea-Bissau government. And before I dive into the ethics, I want to pause on the question, how do you tell the difference between what's right and what's wrong? Because there is no formula. We're all independent people with different values, and we must think an action is right or wrong. And that thinking is influenced, by many factors, our formative years or our cultural group, broader society, our religion or philosophers, or our own mental wanderings. The point is that ethicists are not the authority on what's right and wrong. You are. And ethicists do a lot of thinking about right action and wrong action, so their reasonings are worth listening to. Ethicists are analogous thinkers. They put a lot of thought into some previous cases, then a lot of discourse can focus around the topics that are brought up by those examples. So when we started talking about Guinea-Bissau in 2028, we jumped immediately to Baltimore in the 1990s. In extreme brevity, lead added to paint made it durable and the color lasts longer. So America was painted in lead. This resulted in nationwide lead poisoning, where children's neurodevelopment was hit hard. Baltimore banned it for residential use in the 1950s. The rest of the country followed in 1978. The problem is America is still painted in lead, and it's really expensive to remove, as removing it creates the dust that is part of the problem. The question of how much lead paint removal is enough is really relevant. So to answer that, Johns Hopkins University's Kennedy Krieger Institute ran an IRB-approved study that was funded by the Environmental Protection Agency and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The study partially removed lead paint from 104 homes. 140 children moved into those homes, and the researchers measured the lead levels in their blood over time. And you may think that if the research was not done, the lead in those homes would have been higher. So the research project ultimately reduced toxic exposure. And you would be right. You may also think that the Institute had a duty and failed that duty to protect children from a known harmful substance, especially when blood lead levels rose. And you would be right. The Institute argued that families had a choice to live elsewhere. In reality, this was low-income housing where choice is a luxury not afforded to all. And they were offered incentives to move in. The Institute also argued that the families consented to participate, and based on that research, the Maryland court actually hammered hard on the researcher's duty with respect to consent. Drawing from the Nuremberg Code and the Declaration of Helsinki and the National Bioethics Advisory Commission, the court said, quote, "Otherwise, healthy children should not be subjects of non-therapeutic experimentation or research that has the potential to be harmful to the child. First and foremost, the responsibility of the researcher and the research entity is to see to the harmlessness of such non-therapeutic research. Consent of parents can never relieve the researcher of this duty." And they pounded that point. Quote, "A researcher's duty is not created by or extinguished by the consent of the research subject or by IRB approval. The duty to a vulnerable research subject is independent of consent." Now, the Maryland court's decision is a necessary burden for scientists, and it means that subjects do not sign their lives away when they consent, that researchers still must have a duty to the subject's best interest. It is a tenet of bioethics that your duty is to the individual, not the wider group. The ends cannot possibly ethically justify the means, even with an eye on the greater good. We have a long and tragic history of people pursuing what they considered the greater good at the expense of the individual. This is where, in my opinion, bioethics and public health clash. Public health policy is made with the individual in mind. Decisions are made in an attempt to improve the health of the public. The entire argument of herd immunity is a sacrifice of the individual for the greater good. For decades, newborns in the United States received a Hep B birth dose, even when they had almost zero chance of encountering the virus before the immunity of that vaccine wore off. But herd immunity is always an argument for vaccination. That means that our society believed that a newborn had a duty to take on a hazard for the greater good. And I think that is backwards. So, how does this relate to Guinea-Bissau? Well, in Guinea-Bissau, infants currently get the birth, tuberculosis, and oral polio vaccines. Hepatitis B, not until weeks 6, 10, and 14. The decision has already been made to adhere to the World Health Organization's recommendation for a Hep B birth dose starting in 2028. They would have started it in 2027, but they didn't have the resources. Now, the study that was put on pause was to administer the birth dose to a randomized selection of 14,000 newborns. They otherwise would not have received the dose. And the aim is a 5-year follow-up to examine early life mortality and morbidity, as well as long-term neurodevelopmental outcomes. There are some commonalities with the Baltimore lead paint study. It was performed in low-income housing. Guinea-Bissau's GDP per capita is about $1,000. In contrast, the US has about $90,000 GDP per capita. The Kennedy Krieger Institute randomized families to live in housing units with reduced lead exposure, and the Hep B study would randomize newborns to receive the birth dose. There was, and often ignored by critics, provision in the study to test the mothers, and if positive, exclude them from the study and vaccinate the newborns. Now, a major difference is that diminishing lead exposure in children is a universally acknowledged good thing. Childhood vaccinations are not a universally acknowledged good thing. They come with a lot of risk. One of the head researchers of the study, Peter Abbey, has studied vaccinations in Africa for decades, and he found that in both Gambia and Guinea-Bissau, that Hep B vaccination is strongly associated with a higher rate of mortality. And that higher rate of mortality disproportionately affects girls. In our Louisiana study, we found that 2-month vaccination imply a higher mortality in the 3rd month of life, also disproportionately affecting girls. We think that's related to the difference in the immune system of girls being more aggressive at that age. The point is that you cannot assume safety, and that the risk from the disease must weigh against the risk from the vaccine, which is the point of the study. Just because it was canceled while under fire from ethicists does not mean it was unethical. It does not mean that it was wrong to perform this study. The government that paused this study is about 4 months old, after a military coup that overthrew the government that initially approved the study. While I don't know if the study will advance, I hope the children of Guinea-Bissau will be watched very carefully. The 2028 transition to abide by the World Health Organization recommendation for the birth dose still presents a before and after comparison. It's not as robust as a randomized trial, but it's perhaps still insightful. Now, when weighing ethics or personal decisions, the Hep B birth dose vaccine has been shown to be about 75% effective in reducing mother to newborn transmission, which is a benefit. The risk, unknown. Rochelle Walensky and the Vaccine Integrity Project's attempt and utter failure to demonstrate its safety in a review of the literature published by the Journal of the American Academy of Pediatrics is a testament to our barren knowledge. The day before the last ACIP meeting, in a different publication, Walensky published in the Journal of American Medical Association an article calling for the universal hepatitis B vaccine at birth and is based on a model of disease transmission. From that model, no rational person would conclude universal vaccination. Now, the top 3 bars are from Walensky's article using the Vaccine Integrity Project model. I added the bottom 2 for consideration. It breaks down like this. There are 3 categories of Hep B positive pregnancies. Those who test positive, which are shown in blue, those who are untested, which show in red, and those whose tests show a negative but are in fact positive, which is a roughly 2% false negative. That is in yellow. Now, the standard of care is that newborns of hepatitis B positive pregnancy get a Hep B vaccine, which is 75% effective, and an immunoglobulin, which brings it up to a 94% efficacy in preventing transmission. Now, the first bar at the top is what you can expect if you only vaccinate newborns from Hep B positive pregnancies, which would result in roughly in 1,102 transmissions a year. The second bar is what you would expect if you vaccinate newborns from positive and unknown status pregnancies, which would result in 675 transmissions a year. And the third bar, which is what Walensky is advocating for, is if you universally vaccinate all newborns, which brings it down to 626 transmissions a year. The fourth bar, if you screen the unscreened, you're then able to apply the 94% efficacy therapy to positive pregnancies that you didn't know before. You reduce the transmissions down to 467. In my opinion, this is the optimal choice. The fifth bar, I added the step of if you do universal screening and universal vaccinations, it reduces transmissions down to 408. To be clear, I think this is a bad trade-off and that the optimal would be universal screening. Now, Walensky and the Vaccine Integrity Project are advocating for universal vaccination when universal screening is a win on all fronts, except for Big Pharma. To vaccinate all 3.6 million newborns a year with Hep B vaccine and its 250 micrograms of aluminum adjuvant, a combination that has never been shown to be safe, would cost $106 million and still lead to 626 transmissions. By contrast, to screen the unscreened and then apply the standard of care would cost $3 million, exposing only 13,000 at-risk newborns to the vaccine, and reduce transmissions by 159 a year. Universal screening would save $100 million and about 1 kilogram of aluminum adjuvants from being injected into our next generation every year. Now, I added the possibility of universal screening and vaccination. Now, I would never advocate for this. as it only protects the false negatives and at a huge cost. That is, it would cost $106 million and expose 3.6 million children to the vaccine to save 59 transmissions. It's the math that no one actually wants to do, and it translates to costing $1.8 million to avoid one infection. I wish we lived in a world where we would put that many resources towards a better future, but we don't yet. And because we don't, there are so many other better options of investing $100 million a year to improve the quality of life of children. But that is not why I would never advocate for universal vaccination. It's the 61,000 newborns you would need to vaccinate to prevent one transmission. You would only ever do that if the vaccine were safe, by the strictest definition of the word, devoid of harm. And humans have never made a safe vaccine. On this planet, there is not a single society, government, medical caregiver, or parent that would ever subject 61,000 newborns to harm in order to prevent one infection. There is, however, the former CDC director, Rochelle Walensky, the ironically named Vaccine Integrity Project, the misinformed Centers for Infectious Disease Research and Policy at the University of Minnesota, and the gravely conflicted American Medical Association and the American Academy of Pediatrics, all of whom are advocating for universal vaccinations. They are not going away. They are well-funded and well-organized and have already handpicked their next committee members and their next working groups for the time when they again have a sway over the CDC. I hope that day never comes, but I'm not that optimistic.
Carl, it's amazing work you're doing at Children's Health Science Department. Thank you so much. Fascinating. Carl, just because we've only got a few more minutes left, talk about the ACIP for a second. You are going to be live blogging for us. We're going to be streaming this live on CHD TV. It's Wednesday and Thursday, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
And to the people listening, you're going to want to listen to this one. This is going to be an explosive one, I think, anyway. But we will, if you sign up for the breaking news alerts, they are free, and we will alert you when ACIP is live and when Carl is blogging. Carl, what do you think we should expect on Wednesday and Thursday?
Well, I am expecting COVID vaccine injuries to take center stage at these ACIP proceedings. And it's going to be part of the healing process of overcoming the horrors of the pandemic that we all just experienced. And hopefully we will get some good resolutions so that history will not repeat itself, and that the injured can be recognized and compensated.
And do you think we've got any chance of these COVID shots being taken, not recommended, like with the Hep B at birth?
I think that given ACIP's trajectory, that there will be a more reserved approach to vaccinations, especially the COVID vaccine, which is not nearly as effective as advertised and is a whole lot more dangerous than it was believed to have been.
Is there anything else on the agenda, or is it just COVID shots?
As far as I know, it's the COVID shots is the biggest, but I will certainly.
Okay, well, just to let everybody know, so Friday morning, Carl will come back on CHD TV on the morning show live, and he will give us a summary of everything that's been going on. But do try, if you can, I know many of you work, but if you can, try and tune in live, watch Carl doing the live blogging. So he'll be explaining what is happening as it's happening, and join in the chat as well, because these are important times. Carl, do you get the feeling, I mean, Mary, our president, goes out saying we're winning. Do you feel like we're winning?
I certainly think that our voice is being heard. I do, and that is part of winning. Yes. Ultimately, the ball can move so much further. It's been nudged a little down the field, but yes, overall, I see us winning. As I said, I'm not too optimistic about future administrations and how they may play this game. But at present, I am very optimistic. And the more headway we make now, the harder it will be to turn back the clock.
Karl Jablonowski, thank you so much. We love having you on CHD TV and for the science updates. And we look forward to watching you live blog on Wednesday and Thursday and seeing you back on CHD TV on Friday. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, now we're going to go to Linsey Bernim. Good morning, Linsey. Thank you for waiting.
Yeah, of course. Good morning.
Well, tell everybody I have my own special copy here. This is the Mama Bear. Now, this it's not a book, which is wonderful. I like that. It's something small that you can even put through a letter mailbox or whatever. But this is what you should be giving every young mum, every young mama thinking about having children or pregnant mums. They need to be getting this. It's brilliant. It's concise. It's to the point. It's every question that you want answered on vaccines. Linsey, tell us why you wrote it and your team wrote it.
Yeah, so it started out as exactly what you're saying. We have so many people in the movement, and so often these people are the people who have already walked vaccine injury, unfortunately, and that's why they're so passionate about the issue. And we really want to be reaching moms before they have to walk that painful road. And so we were talking about what could we do to maybe get into pregnancy centers in the state of Kansas. And that was the very first genesis of this book. And it's gone through many versions to be what it is today. We've had a lot of help to get it to be what it is today, including Brian Hooker helped us in the early stages. So we're really grateful for everyone who contributed to what we have now, because I think it's a really, like you said, it's short. It's really written for moms who are busy. I think you can read the whole thing in about half an hour. So you can get everything you need to know on vaccines in 30 minutes. And then if you want to go deeper, we have over 120 citations in the back that you can go and read all the primary sources for yourself.
And here's the thing, Linsey, this is why, it's the sort of thing you should pack in if you have to go to hospital and have a baby, pack it in your hospital bag, because you or your partner can just grab it and answer the questions, because you make a good point. Knowledge is key. You need to know before you go in, and you list everything. I made a list here. What's in a vaccine? Are they safe in pregnancy? Will vaccines protect my baby? Vaccines versus the unvaxxed, SIDS, vitamin K shot. And then I love it that you say, who sponsors the American Academy of Pediatrics? You've listed it all out there. So for those of you that bow down to the god of the AAP, you need to know that they are big time dark side.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that a lot of people realize, we actually just had a hearing in Kansas on a freedom bill, and someone was asking one of the opponents of the freedom bill, who decides in Kansas what our vaccination schedule is for our children. And he was like, well, the KDHE decides, and they get their guidance from the CDC. And after some more probing, he basically admitted, well, no one believes that the current administration, the CDC, knows what it's doing right now. So no one's actually following the CDC schedule. And it's because they're following the American Academy of Pediatrics, the alternate schedule they've put out, because they're funded by pharma. So
yeah, and a lot more people, and even your pediatricians, taking incentives to vaccinate your children. I mean, it's such an eye-opener once you go down that rabbit hole, and your book is just brilliant at starting someone out on this journey, I think. So why, some people say, well, I've already got this book, or I've got this book. Why is this one different to the others?
Well, I mean, it's written specifically for moms. So we try and really come from a perspective of, how can we best broach this subject, because it's not an easy thing to hear all of these things about vaccines that we know to be true. So how can we do that in a way that, isn't just scary? And then also, we've really tried to be neutral in the book and not say, read this information and then become an anti-vaxxer. We've really tried to be like, hey, listen to these resources and then make the decision that's best for your family. Like, take this as tools in your tool belt so that you can be fully informed and you can make your own informed decision for your unique child, your unique situation, with your doctor, with your other healthcare providers. And so it's, I think it's different than a lot of other resources that are just written by our side for our side. You can really give this to any mom, whether she's a pro-vaxxer, anti-vaxxer, she doesn't know, like, it can go to anyone, and it's not going to be terribly in their face of feeling like a conspiracy theory or something like that.
Yeah, so Linsey, what do you say to the young mum that's doesn't know anything about children's health defense, doesn't know anything about any of us, and just says, look, well, why would I not trust my doctor? Why do I need to read this book? My doctor would never say something would hurt me or my child. Why do I need to do that?
Well, we talk about it in the book. I think I would say ultimately no one is going to love your child more than you do. Even if you have a great doctor who's really smart and you think really cares about you, and they may genuinely care about you, you're the only one who can protect your child at the end of the day, and no one's going to love them more than you. So you have to understand what the risks are of any medical decision you're going to make. And I'm forgetting the exact genesis of your question, but why do they need to read the book?
Yeah, well, basically, talking about, I also want to just add on to this on the other hand, is that, so the other side of it is people saying, look, I'm not going to vaccinate my baby, okay? So I don't need to read this. Why do they need to read this? Why do they need to have this on hand when they're going to hospital and they're going to be faced with that bullying? Because we all know that no matter how strong you are, once you've had that baby, you're exhausted, you're not thinking straight. So why is it important?
Sure, 100%. So I can speak from my own experience. We had a planned home birth that ended up in a last minute C-section. So I ended up in the hospital, which was the very last place that I wanted to be. And we declined the vitamin K shot, and we got an immense amount of pressure from the hospital staff. We had a pediatrician come in and lecture us about it. All the nurses were asking about it. They sent us home with a packet, and they were very, like in my face about all the fear. But I had done my research. I knew what some of the studies said about the efficacy of oral vitamin K. We were planning to administer oral vitamin K as soon as we got home from the hospital. And so I never felt pressured, or I never felt the fear of like, oh, maybe I should listen to them. Maybe we should give them the vitamin K shot, because I knew, and I put in the work, I did the research, and I felt comfortable with the decision we planned to make for our daughter. But I mean, I had a newborn at that point. I'm trying to learn how to nurse, and I'm exhausted from a traumatic birth that I wasn't expecting. And the last thing you want in your room at that point is all these nurses being like, you need to give your baby this shot. And so if you're not prepared for that, then it's a really hard place to be. And I love this book because I mean, I helped write this book, and I'm in all the sources for the vaccine things because of my job. But I use it all the time to go back and be like, okay, this is the claim. Let me pull this source, or let me get this specific information on it. So I think it's perfect for that. Using it as a reference guide to be like, this is the data I need to give to someone to prove what I'm saying, and not just give them the talking point. And I think it's really powerful for moms who are already in this, but who have forgotten, the full scope. I've given it to many moms who I know that already do not vaccinate. And at talking with them, I'm surprised how many nitpicky details in the book they don't know. And I'm like, I realize that I only know that because I work in this field, and you don't know that as an average mom whose primary day to day is with your kids and not with vaccine research. So
yeah, and I want to go to this bit here. That's what's in a vaccine. You've spelled. I mean, anybody who, I mean, I wish I'd known this when I was vaccinating my kids. I had no idea. Aborted fetal cells, animal products, polysorbate 80, which is disgusting chemical, formaldehyde, aluminum, amongst great many other. But you go in to explain it all. So again, this isn't just for giving birth in a hospital. This book is for your years of life as a mama.
yes, definitely. And I was just talking with a third-time mom who hasn't vaccinated since their first, and even she was using it to decide about a vitamin K shot this time and look back on some of this information. So it's really valuable for any stage of life, even if you're not a mom, like I said, as a reference guide to provide sources as you're talking with people.
And the same old thing that they say, well, I don't want to catch measles, my child might die, so I'm going to take the MMR shot. But what they don't realize is that the MMR is not effective or safe, or all of those kind of things. And again, that's something you spell out. How important do you think these things are? How did you choose what to put in this book? Because it's perfect.
Good. I'm glad you think so. We were really trying to think through what are the things that moms need to know, and then what are the things that moms are wanting to know as well. So, and then we did it in a question format. So we would get them wondering, we start out with, are vaccines safe and are vaccines effective? Those are two of the first questions we ask, because that's the narrative that they're being told, is vaccines are safe and effective. And we just want to say, let's stop a minute and take a look at that claim and what's actually behind it. Are they safe? Are they effective? What does safe mean? What does effective mean? And so that's where we started when we tried to pick the questions and the content.
And I love that you covered the vitamin K shot. So many people don't. I mean, even in the studies, I was talking to Paul Thomas about his studies, Vaxxed and Vaxxed, which did not add up with the stories we had on the bus, because the studies do not take into account the vitamin K shot. Talk to us about the vitamin K shot, what you know about it.
Yeah, so the vitamin K shot, I think something interesting that I was running into when I first started researching it is that we say it's for vitamin K deficiency bleeding, but some of the earliest literature on it that I was reading is just that it's spontaneous bleeding, and we've just kind of decided that it's because of vitamin K. And maybe I'm misspeaking. I don't have a degree in science or anything like that, but I just thought that was really interesting. And we have seen high efficacy in terms of not very many children suffer from vitamin K deficiency bleeding now that we have a universal vitamin K shot recommendation. But there's a really good Danish study of oral vitamin K, and this is a really hard issue to study because VKDB is so rare, but they had quite a large sample size in their study and administered oral vitamin K and found really, really good efficacy for it. And so I think that's really important for parents to know. And in general, just vitamin K deficiency bleeding is so, so rare, whether you give the shot or not. And it's even possible for your child to get VKDP with the shot. So you just have to know those things because the shot has its own risks. It has a black box warning. One of the risks is jaundice or eczema up to a year after administration. Especially, there's two versions of the vitamin K shot. One of them has a preservative in it, and specifically that preservative, benzyl alcohol, has known problems in infants specifically. And so that's something that parents need to know before they give the shot. So that is an option. You can opt for a preservative-free shot. You could opt for oral vitamin K. Dr. Paul Thomas even talks about how you could ask the hospital to administer the vitamin K shot orally, which would be an off-label use, but he talks about that in his book a little bit.
Yeah, and just to say to everyone out there, not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defence, but certainly the views of me. I've seen so many babies that have not had any vitamin K shot orally or whatever, and they are strong. They are fine. They're breastfed babies. I think that's very important, and they're doing super well.
Yeah.
And you have questions at the back of the book for your doctor, which also I love. Why did you think it was important to put that in?
Well, I think so. The first time we recently moved, and the first time I took my daughter to the provider she's been seeing here, the doctor was in the room for literally less than 2 minutes. That's another thing we talk about in the book, is that your provider doesn't spend very much time with your child. And so it's often just like, okay, here are the things we're going to do today, get in and out, because they need to get in and out. And so it's important for parents to be ready to ask those questions, not only for themselves, but honestly also for their doctor, because their doctor might not even know the answer to some of these questions. And there's stories in the book from moms, and I don't remember if any of the stories speak to this specifically, but we hear from moms, like they start asking questions about vaccines and they realize, I actually know more than my doctor does about this. And that's a really scary place to be when, the person you're supposed to trust actually doesn't know anything about the medical intervention that they're recommending for your child. So it's really important to ask questions. And I think this list is helpful because it can feel a little scary to ask questions. And so you can just work down the list and you don't have to come up with it on your own.
So how can we get this book? It's a burning question. And how much is this? How much does it cost?
It's $12 on our website. We will be running sales on our social media, so you can follow us on social media. We're Kansans for Health Freedom on Instagram and Facebook. And then you have the link up on the screen there. kshf.org/Mama Bear has more information about the book and where you can purchase it.
And tell us about Kansas for Health Freedom. Who are you? What do you do?
Sure. So we're a nonprofit in Kansas. We're 501c4. So we do both educational work and political work. I have a a bill hearing in my other browser right now to see if they're going to work our freedom bill today. So we work with the legislator passing legislation to protect families' rights to choose. And then Mama Bear has been our biggest educational effort lately, wanting to get this in the hands of moms. We have some long-term goals to see this in pregnancy centers in Kansas, maybe a Spanish translation. So we're really excited to see where this can go.
Well, I am so proud of you all for putting this together. This is exactly what I needed as a young mum, because I had no idea about any of this stuff, none. And it's a little harder today than it was when I was a young mum because of the internet and there's so much misinformation and all that kind of stuff out there. So it's difficult, when they're calling people like Children's Health Fund quacks and you guys and crazy anti-vaxxers, all that kind of stuff. But this would have been just perfect to have been handed to me as a young mum. SIDS, I just want to talk about that as a last final thing. It's so important. We're going to show in a minute, we're going to go to the Vaxxed section of SIDS because I think it's important. I thought it was a good follow on from why it is so important that people do, if you can afford it, please do get this book. And if you can afford to sponsor people as well to give out these books to young mums, I think that would be just a fantastic thing. But why did you decide to put a SIDS chapter in there?
Yeah, so real quick, I will mention if you are a first-time mom, we offer the book for $10 free shipping if you email us with your due date. So if that's you, definitely take advantage of that because we want you to have this book. So why did we do a SIDS chapter? We haven't had we have a lot of educational flyers at KSHF. We haven't had a SIDS flyer before, so this was a new topic for us to broach, and Dr. Hooker helped us immensely with writing this section. And this is what people would see online and be like, oh, those crazy anti-vaxxers. But SIDS is listed in the DTaP insert as a potential adverse reaction. So parents need to know that. And then there's is it Dr. Miller's SIDS study that we have in the book? Yeah, you have it on the screen, that there's just a high percentage of SIDS deaths concentrated close to post-vaccination, which is a really concerning safety signal. And that's really all we say in the book. We don't say vaccines cause SIDS. We just say there are concerning safety signals, and at the very least, there needs to be more research on this issue, and parents need to know that this data exists.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I hate being called an anti-vaxxer, and people are just like, why? Embrace it. I feel I hate it. And especially for those mothers, the SIDS parents, who decide their baby has died following vaccination and they decide they're not going to quite rightly carry on vaccinating because they saw it with their own eyes. We are ex-vaxxers and they're not going to get away with calling us an anti-vaxxer. We vaccinated. We did as we were told. Our children are either dead or injured with lifelong disabilities. So I am proudly going to say I'm an ex-vaxxer because they don't get away with it. And
Yeah.
so I just
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. And that's what I was saying earlier is we really want this to get to new moms. And I think what we found so far, or my experience at least in talking with people, is that expectant moms that I've offered the book to actually aren't super interested, not because of the content, but just they don't feel like they need it. And so we really want to encourage people who know the truth and want other people not to have to walk the same road that they walked to vaccine injury. Give this at every baby shower that you're going to, every new mom that you can. Just keep a stock in your purse so you can hand it out when you're at the grocery store. Because we just really want parents to have the resources that they need to make the best decision for their family. And this book is going to help them do that.
Yeah, and what I say to young mums is, look, read this book or read a book, do your work, listen to the stories of the parents, because once that needle goes in, there is no going back. You might be able to improve the quality of life or help the eczema or the conditions that your child has, but you will never, ever be able to undo the moment that needle goes in. So wait. I mean, look, we're looking right now at those beautiful twins that were killed by vaccines. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. We have 2 buses full of it. And so you, Linsey, to your team, to the Kansas for Health Freedom, thank you so much for the work that's put into that. And I will definitely be ordering some just to hand out. And I know that our viewers will, if they can as well. So any last words?
I don't think so. I would just say, get the book and give it to new moms in your life and keep it as a resource guide for yourself. It's just so important that parents have the tools they need to make an informed decision.
Absolutely. Linsey, Bernim, thank you so much. And please do thank the rest of Kansas for Health Freedom that were involved in making this, because it's just brilliant. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
All right, everyone. So the reason why I'm going to play this section of what we call the dead babies of Vaxxed is because they're just a fraction of countless worldwide that didn't have the information. These parents did not have books like Mama Bear. And so please do take this in. Please do share this as well, because I think also visually it's good for young parents to as heartbreaking as it is, they have to see the reality. And if they don't have the knowledge, then one of these babies, it could happen to their child. So we're going to play this now. Is distressing, so that it's a warning for you, but it's important and it's real and it's the truth. So Michael Ken will be with you tomorrow with Miriam, but I will see you on Wednesday. We're doing this broadcast in memory of these babies who have passed away. And so as we traveled on and on and on, we then met parents who would tell us that they would vaccinate their babies and then their babies would die.
I walked up to kiss him goodnight. It was 12:06 in the morning, and I kissed his cheek, and it was like an ice cube. And I just started screaming to Bryce, he's dead, he's dead. And everything that I know how to do CPR, I'm certified in this. I just stepped back and screamed. And Bryce walked in and just grabbed him and ran.
I grabbed him, I get in the car, I'm trying to do CPR while I'm driving, and it's raining. And I just pulled to the emergency room, and ran and said that he's dead. And they started working on him. Epinephrine, they gave him all these shots, and his body was just swelling from all the medicine they were trying to give him to get him going again. There was never anything again.
Where's Mason? Where's Mason? Where's Mason?
The infant mortality rate study that was conducted by the Centers for Disease Control in 2014, and they looked at the incidence of infant mortality in 34 developed nations, and the United States placed last. We were 34th out of all of these developed nations. We give the most vaccines during the first year of life.
He got his Hep B, he got his vitamin K.
At 2 months, and I think at 4 months, and then at 6 months.
She had the Hep B, and she had the vitamin K injection.
He got his hepatitis B,
Rototec,
polio,
Prevnar.
One in each leg, one in the arm, and one oral.
Rotavirus, which was oral.
The DTaP.
DTaP. Well, when we went to get him vaccinated, he had just been hospitalized for RSV. And when we went in, I said, I don't feel comfortable with him being vaccinated because he's just been so sick. I think that we need to wait. And the pediatrician looked at Bryce and I and said, if you don't vaccinate your son, who was born at 35 weeks and is a premature baby, you're signing his death certificate for this whooping cough.
Well, that's when the doctor told me he was going to go ahead and vaccinate her, being she was there. And I did ask him, because it was 2 weeks early, if it was okay. He said, yeah, it would be no problem.
This is the day that she had the vaccines. This is before we left to go to the doctor.
so we were just about to go.
Yeah, and this is her the very next day where she started running the high fevers. I mean, we could see there was something not right.
I never second guessed it that I shouldn't vaccinate them. But at that appointment that morning, as I was laying him on the table to get him vaccinated, and the nurse just going to stick the needle in his right thigh, just something screamed in me, no. don't, wait. But at that point, the moment had passed.
He's just not sleeping. I can't do anything to make him happy.
When she wasn't sleeping, she was very irritable.
If she wasn't crying, she was real lethargic.
We used to do this thing where we would cradle her in our arms, and then we'd lift her little arm up and we'd eat her ribs. And she loved it, but she didn't love that anymore. She cried and screamed.
He started screaming 23 hours a day.
He was so dazed, he wasn't there.
He just kind of looked at the ceiling, and anytime you tried to get in his way, he would just look around you.
And they told me she had a little cold, just a cold.
So I gave her the smallest dose of Tylenol, which is what the doctor told me to do, and I put her to bed.
And then as I left for my shift, I went and gave him a kiss. And I just remember the look on his face. He was just so sad. And he doesn't get sad because he was with his dad. His dad was with him, he was with his sister, he could play with her. But it was almost like I was leaving him for the last time and he knew it.
Good Friday, 2 days before Easter, she passed away in her sleep.
That was the last time I kissed his alive, warm cheek. It was the last time that I held him. It was the last time that I told him that I loved him when he was alive.
Well, I went to go lay him down, and I went to load the dishwasher, and when I went to go check on him, he was already gone. I remember holding him like this, and his head was just drooping, and his arms were just limp, like he was already gone.
I left her just to take the trash out and came back and she was arched back and not breathing. I started CPR. I called for my husband. He came and continued. When the first responders came, the first person I saw was someone I'd grown up with. And he came running down the driveway and I thought, oh, good, like he'll make sure that she's fine, you know. So they came in and couldn't get her breathing. And when I heard them call for the second EpiPen, I knew that she wasn't going to respond.
Couldn't save her.
That he finally called her time of death. It was on July 4th, 2015 at 7:01 a.m.
They let us go in there where she was, and I held her and I held her and I just prayed for her to start breathing.
She's been through a lot. She lost her innocence that night as we had to tell her in the ER to say goodbye to Kobe because he's going to live with Jesus and he won't see him again. And the sparkle just left her eye. You could see it. She was happy. She didn't understand that she was losing her best friend that night.
Bright girl. And you will see your brother again.
We leave the hospital, we get home with my parents trying to talk about funeral arrangements, and cops come knock on my door.
The police wouldn't let us go home without them. They had to escort us home.
Child Protective Services, whenever something like this happens, they're automatically there.
What are y'all trying to say? Are y'all trying to say I did something to my baby?
They took our son's crib and mattress out of the house.
They took pictures and took her dose of Tylenol that I gave her, took her last feeding that she had.
Looked in every cabinet, woke up our other kids, asked them questions.
They treated us like we did it, like we killed her. And that hurt.
They couldn't find nothing and they labeled it SIDS.
You know, these infants don't need to be dying like this. The diseases are not coming at them at such a rate that we had to protect them at all cost with a vaccine.
You know, when people tell me vaccines are making children healthier, really, I look at the hepatitis B vaccine.
Hepatitis B for a newborn whose mother doesn't have Hep B makes no sense.
It drives me insane. Why is that a vaccine for young children?
There's just no reason whatsoever that a newborn, a 1-month-old or 6-month-old should be vaccinated against a disease that is basically sexually transmitted.
So then I asked, well, how long does a hepatitis B vaccine last? And he said, well, we hope it lasts about 12 years. So I'm just saying, you know, this just does not make sense.
This has actually been proven that these vaccines cause cardiovascular instability in these infants. And so all that aluminum that you've just given in these killed bacterial or viral vaccines is having a profound inflammatory effect that's killing them.
You look at the packet insert, you even look at the literature of the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. They compensate for death due to encephalopathy and encephalitis. It causes death, and they admit it.
Because you don't vaccinate in the first year.
Right.
Do any of you, have you had any SIDS?
No.
Bam.
Wow.
The second Mason was vaccinated, his life changed and ended. And with Oliver, who is our son that was born 2 years later, he actually got whooping cough.
And he's still here today.
Right.
Whoever knew that you could die from a vaccine? I had no idea you could die from a vaccine. There was death everywhere. The dead babies, the toddlers, the young children, the teenagers, the adults, the old age people. Every day we would have a death story in every location.
I found it really difficult to be on the bus and even listening to the stories.
We were utterly mentally exhausted and our hearts were breaking and we felt like our souls were being ripped from us listening to the utter devastation.
I actually had to tune out some of it because my heart couldn't hold all of it. It was just too difficult to carry these stories around in my head and my heart. This is our memorial to those who have been unseen and unheard.
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.